Good morning, and it's Sunday morning again. My name is Rabbi Danyiel, and today I'm continuing my series with um, success dealing with biblical finance, things that the Bible speaks about when it comes to finance. Today's a special one because today I'm going to be talking about compensation. Specifically, this video is to really help those that are vets out there that don't understand the VA rating system. They don't understand the entitlements they have for compensation. Military life is very hard on the body, and those that can get finished with military life and still have their body intact without problems or issues, they're blessed, especially during times of combat and war. And as of today is the 1st of September, 2019. So with that said, we've been constantly engaged in contingency operations and basically combat operations for almost 20 years, for over, since 9/11 back 2001. So you're talking about some serious time there. I mean, there is generation shift here, still dealing with this problem, and doesn't seem like there's any end in sight. Of course, that goes on to bigger issues about terrorism and other things. That's not the purpose of this video. The purpose of this video specifically is to help vets understand their rights to VA compensation and to frame it for them in a biblical context, because I myself am a chaplain to the military, and these are very important things that I end up talking with vets all the time as I help the National Guard vets that I deal with. I help them with their issues and their problems, and so I thought it'd be helpful to just put this out for the larger community of vets out there, and anybody that has connections and relationships with vets that are, like maybe your brother was a vet, or your father was a vet, or your mom was a vet, or your daughter just finished being a vet, cousin or vet, whatever. This applies to everybody. The sons and daughters have been engaged in combat and contingency operations for quite some time. So the biblical scripture that we're going to start off with this morning is in Deuteronomy, Devarim 19:21. So Devarim 19:21 says, "Your eye shall not pity, life for a life, eye for an eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, and foot for foot." Okay, so in Hebrew that reads, "V'lo tachos einecha, nefesh b'nefesh, ayin b'ayin, shin b'shin, yad b'yad, rega b'rega." Okay, so from this reading in Deuteronomy, it sounds like, well, that's really harsh. That's like you just go out there, somebody does wrong to you, you just come back and you just do wrong back to them, and you just full blown on like Hatfield and McCoy's battling in the mountains over there by Tennessee. It's like, okay, that's not what it meant. That's not what the scripture means. And how do we know that's not what the scripture means? On a simple reading, because the words themselves aren't translated very easy. It uses a context of "but" or "with" or "exchange." It's a ayin ba'ayin. It's kind of hard. That's an idiomatic phrase. It's not easy to translate from one language to the next. So how do we understand the translation? Well, we go to another scripture. Another scripture is Leviticus 19 through 20. And Leviticus 19 through 20 says, "And if a man inflicts a wound in his fellow, as he did, so shall be done to him. A break for a break, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Just as he will have inflicted a wound on a person, so shall be inflicted upon him." This actually speaks about somebody telling false testimony in court earlier. That's the setup, false testimony in court. And whatever the person false testimony in court, the goal of that to try to cause a problem to the person, that should be brought upon that person. That's what it's talking about. Okay. But how do we know it's talking about restitution and just not revenge? Because it says here, one who strikes an animal shall make restitution. Okay? And from that, we know through rabbinical history, rabbinical laws, rabbinical traditions, biblical history, and everything else, that it is talking about restitution. That is the Jewish conception. That has been the Jewish conception since almost the beginning of Judaism, for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. 3,500 years. So that's what we know is about restitution. It's not about compensation. Okay, so with that said, let's talk about veterans' issues. Let's talk about injuries. Now, if you're working at Walmart and through negligence, a pallet or something else fell upon you, would it not be reasonable to go to Walmart and ask for restitution? Of course it is. And we have this in our system anyway. It's called workman's comp. We have workman's compensation. So if somebody gets hurt on the job, they're paying insurance into the system. It's taken out automatically. It's called OASDI. Look at your pay stubs. It's taken out automatically. Whether you want to or not, it's a tax imposed on you. And why is that tax imposed on you? So if somebody gets hurt, say working at Walmart or Target, a pallet falls on them, they trip and fall, they hurt themselves, then they're going to go back and they're going to get compensation for their injuries. And the compensation is supposed to be to help them for the loss that they incur. The scripture, there's several other scriptures that talk about this. It talks about if back in the day of ancient times when they had slaves, and there's a big difference between a Hebrew slave, between slaves in Judaism and slaves in the surrounding world. Slaves in the surrounding world were considered property. Slaves in Judaism was more considered like a indentured servant type. So if you hurt your indentured servant, you were required to pay restitution to your indentured servant. Your indentured servant is a servant because they owe you a debt. Okay? And they would be required to pay. So if a master would strike the indentured servant, or employee would strike the employer would strike the employee and cause a loss of the eye, then that compensation would have to be made. The Bible talks about this in depth. It talks about it in many different places about compensation, whether it's compensation for a personal injuries or compensation towards livestock and animals, compensation towards all of this. It's very important to understand. Therefore, injuries are very important to understand. And just as there is a system in the civilian world with being taxed so that you can pay workman's comp issues, there is a system designed for vets, because when you're in the military, you don't have that same system of workman's comp. In other words, you have a different system, and that system is the VA system. So once a veteran gets out of the military, or if they're in the reserve or the National Guard status, they can file filings to the VA to compensate them for the damages incurred to their body and even to their mental status while serving on active duty. And that's very important, because there's a lot of stuff that can go down. I mean, when people get blown up, they get TBIs, traumatic brain injuries, they get the loss of limbs. They need to be compensated for this correctly. And it was after the Civil War that upon the urging of President Lincoln, that they established this concept to take care of the vet. We need to take care of the vet. So that's why there's what's called the VA compensation and pension. Okay, there's some misunderstanding. There's VA disability and there's VA compensation, and they're kind of lumped together. But there's a huge difference. A compensation doesn't mean that a person's disabled and they can't work anymore. It means that they are hurt in a capacity to where it limits their capability of doing the work. Their back is messed up, so they can't spend all the time going to work doing heavy labor anymore. They have lost their ability to do certain jobs, or they've been pushed out of a field because of it. Now, with the VA, there's a crazy rating system. It is, remember, the VA is bureaucratic. It is a government organization. And with all the good it does, I'm not going to deny that it does several things that are good. There's the bureaucratic side of it that really just throws a wrench in, a monkey wrench in all the works, and just just makes things horrible. So there's vets that go without care or treatment. A lot of it is lack of knowledge. They don't know where to go, how to go, because the bureaucratic system shuffles them around. But you can get rated for different pieces of your body. So like you can get rated for your neck, you can get rated for your back, you can get rated for any orthopedic injury, you can get rated for any internal injuries, you can get rated for, there's several different ratings. And at certain periods, certain things start to happen. So today, there's several videos on this about the rating system and where is everything. I'm just doing a general overview today. So there's a couple ways to get 100% rating. 100% rating, there's what's called schedule, and that's just adding up your knees and your back and your ankles and your elbow and etc. until you reach 100%. And there's several different ways to do that. Or you can get, once it's permanent total, that means they're not going to call you back. So certain injuries are permanent total. They can see it like x-rays on your spine. Your broken bones, x-rays on the spine. Back issues don't resolve themselves. They don't get better. So they know this. So it's like if you have a back issue, neck issue, the radiculopathy coming off the arms or the legs because of the back issue. And, your orthopedic injuries get up to a certain percent, 100%, then schedule 100%, then, they're probably going to say this is permanent total. Don't come back. We don't need to see you for these issues again, because we know. Now, if there's things that can change and heal, they might say, well, this is not permanent total. You might have to come back. And then somebody can be injured so bad, like in their lower back or their neck, but not reach that 100% on the schedule rating. They can request the VA to consider what's called a TDUI, a total disability due to unemployment, meaning they just cannot go to work. They have serious issues. Now, why should everybody file? Every vet should file, period, in my opinion. Why? Because there's serious benefits to filing VA compensation. First off, there's property tax benefits in certain states. It depends on the percentage of disability granted. Some states, you don't have to pay any property tax. That's a huge game changer for the vet. Other states, you have to wait. Like I'm in California, so you got to get 100% before that takes effect, and it's only to a certain limit. You can get free college for your dependents, and every state is different on how they rate those things. Or remember that the disability benefits that you do get, they're tax-free, and that's a great help to the vet to get ahead in life. And there's more than 100% because there's all these special little ratings and codes in there that can help a vet depending on the situation. If they lost a limb, if they need certain things done to their property, if they need accommodations for and if they can still work and they need accommodations for work, it can be paid by the VA. We've got what's called primary claims and secondary claims. So primary claim, and this is another reason why every vet should file as soon as they can when they get upon their military service, because there's primary claims. Those are claims that they can actually go to your record and they can see that it was in your record and then it's been bothering you, and now you got to a point where you made the VA file the claim to the VA. Oh, it's easy. There might be some x-rays. There's obvious signs. Maybe there was injury that requires surgery. All these, it's all in the records. It's there. That's direct service connect. So you've got it. However, oftentimes we go on and one injury will cause another. It's known that one orthopedic injury will cause or lead to another orthopedic injury. If you have a messed up back, you're probably going to end up getting a messed up neck. If you have a messed up back or a messed up neck, you're going to get radiculopathy down the arm or down the leg, referred to as sciatica down the leg. If you have a messed up ankle or messed up knee, it's going to cause you to walk funny, which will then affect your back, which will then affect, it's like, so the whole system is linked together. When they know that if you have tinnitus, that it can be linked to TMJ, that it can be linked to migraine headaches or headaches, ocular vision headaches, etc. They know all these things are linked, like neck issues can cause headaches and migraines, so they're connected. So even if it's minor, very minor, when the vet gets done with the service, they should still file the claim so it's on record, because once it's on record, then if it gets worse later on in time, then it goes back and it can be filed as an increase on the primary service connection, or it can be secondary service connection, and there is professionals out there that can help with the letters and the medical evidence and everything needed to make those links. So there's no reason at all why we should see vets on the street begging for money, or vets on the street that have issues and problems, because there is so much out there. But it's a matter of educating. So any vet out there should learn this stuff, and they should educate their other vets on the situation. And we as proper citizens should take care of our vets that bear the burdens of combat and war and stress, all related to that, and their families also bear that burden. So that's why we should do that. So you can link these through what's called the Nexus Letter, and if you don't have the proper evidence yourself, there's professionals out there that can help you get those proper links, and several of them will do it for at no cost until you get paid back compensation on it. But as we know, like in orthopedic injuries, they're only going to get worse in time. Your body is a mechanism, and over age, it breaks down. And so if you messed up your ankle and you say, it's the minor, it's no problem, and then all of a sudden, a couple of years go by, a couple of years go by, a couple more years go by, well, you never filed, it becomes increasingly harder to file a claim with the VA, and they're likely to deny it. So it's very important that you file it as early as you can. So this video is very important to get that word out to vets. File. Go ahead and file. What's the worst going to happen? They're going to reject you. They're going to say no. Okay, fine. They reject you. They say no. But at least you have it in the record. And if you get the service connection, then there's other things that can lead or open up for you, for care or treatment, for help. Okay, so it's very important, and it's biblical. This is a biblical concept. So don't feel guilty about it, or don't let them try to make you feel guilty about it. If you are hurt and you have injuries that last, like myself, I was a paratrooper. I was in the 82nd Airborne, multiple hard landings. I burned in several different types of equipment. It took its toll on my back, and I filed for my back immediately when I got out of the 82nd, because one day I was working on my car and my back locked up and I couldn't stand up straight. Now it's called a flare-up, and I get those flare-ups. I get flare-ups in the neck, I get flare-ups. So there's orthopedic injuries in my body that will flare up and cause problems. And so it's important to go out there. It's important to make sure it's in the record. It's important not to wait. Because there's advantages to businesses, small business startups, and did you know, as far as defense contracts go, there are several defense contracts that the way the laws are written, they have to give certain amount of these defense contracts to disabled-owned veteran organizations, so disabled-owned veteran companies. So if you have a disabled vet and you can file, and you start up a company and you file as a disabled-owned vet company, then you get preference for defense contracts. You see what I'm saying? So it's highly important to understand that. Also, you get preference for hiring with government organizations and agencies. You can get a 10% differential in the hiring process, which is huge, which can pretty much, you beat out the competition because you're a disabled vet. But it's a way for this compensation to be given back. And nobody ever should feel ashamed or embarrassed or bad about seeking medical help that they need, or about this compensation for vets, because vets have bared the burden. And I know as a vet, as an 82nd Airborne paratrooper, 11 Bravo series, which is infantryman, and I also know it intimately as a chaplain that has dealt with people's issues and problems, and I have helped them along the way to try to become whole again, right? So it's very important that if there's vets in your life and you love these people, that you get them to file, you get them to the help that they need, you get them, help them with that compensation. Even if it's small when they get out, that stuff grows. So, and it's biblical. Like I said, Deuteronomy 19:21, Leviticus 24:19 through 21. There's other passages in Scripture you can refer to. It is biblical to take care to compensate for damages. It is biblical, okay? So don't feel ever pressure or guilty about that. File it. It's your right. And so with that, I want everybody to be blessed. I want to thank everybody for listening. If you liked what I had to say today, please hit the like button, share it with others, okay? And if you need any help with any of this stuff, you can reach out to me and I can consult you a little bit on it. Coach you, more of a coaching on where to go and how to take care of stuff. You can look up my own stuff. I'm with Genesis Consulting Solutions, and it's not my primary thing, but my primary thing is to help people start up businesses. And but this definitely can work in that, and I can help vets figure out other things as well. So, and you don't have to be a vet. If you need help, reach out to me, Genesis Consulting Solutions, Rabbi Danyiel at iCloud.com, or so just reach out in a header, just say veteran help, or whatever you need help with, okay? So it's identifiable that you need my help, okay? And I'm more than willing to help, okay? All right, so again, takeaways: Deuteronomy 19:21, Leviticus 24:19 through 20, compensation. If you lost your eye, then you're compensated for the value of your eye. What does that mean? That means the losses incurred for not having that eye anymore, being taken care of that eye. Anyway, so with all that, everybody out there, be blessed. Have a blessed day. Start your day off. Have a great day. And with that, I say thank you.